Hi, I'm Mike from 1A Auto. We've been selling auto parts for over 30 years.
Open the hood, pull the release inside. Find the secondary safety release under your hood. On our Civic, we've got two spots we can put the prop rod. You can put it here, or you can put it in the service position, open it further. We're going to use that one. I'm going to replace this transmission mount here. I'm going to disconnect the negative terminal of the battery before I start touching anything. This is a 10mm on this car. Just loosen it up. Just put this aside. After the negative terminal's been disconnected, use a 12mm wrench to remove the positive terminal. This terminal is live, so try not to touch the wrench to any other metal while you're removing it. This is just on here in plastic. Pull the cable over. I'm gonna spray some rust penetrant on here. They're a little rusty. Using a 10mm deep socket. So if the deep socket isn't deep enough, you can just take a ratcheting wrench or a box wrench, whatever you have handy. You don't have to loosen them off fully. And that one popped out. So once they're loose enough, you can kind of move this around. Like this one popped out of the little hook. So now it's unhooked. Then you can maneuver this one. Take the whole bracket and mount out. There's a plastic cover on here. You can just pull that off and then reach in. Probably want to wear some gloves. These batteries can have acid on them. Just pull it right out and put this aside. There's a third bolt down here that's hidden by the battery. With the battery out, we can get to it. It's 10mm. Use the 10mm socket and ratchet to remove it. I'll remove this one up here. Remove this 10mm bolt on the back side. There's a plastic cover on the ECU. It's got two little tabs here. If it's kind of loose, it'll pop right out. Slide the cover off. Then we're gonna just gently pull this over. There's three connectors, they're locked, so you gotta kind of push in the lock and then pull this open like that at the same time. It'll kind of push it off. Do this for all three of them. Pull the ECU right out. Take some small needle nose pliers. Push in these little tabs. Pull this harness out of this bracket. There are three clips on the outside of this fuse panel box that are holding it to a bracket. Not the ones that are holding the cover on. There's this two in the back, one in the front. So you actually push it outwards. So at the tab, we're gonna flip it outwards. Do it with my thumb here, and then lift up on this. They'll come loose. I'm gonna do the two on the back, same way. If you're having trouble getting your fingers in there, you can use a flat-bladed screwdriver. And with one hand, lift up on the box and unlock it. Same with this one here. There's one. There's the other one. Okay. Just had to work at it a little bit. Lift up in the box, just kind of gently. Pick it up and off the bracket. Try not to pinch the ECU wires too much. And that can sit like that. Now I can get to this 10mm bolt that's back here. I'm going to remove that. Use just the socket and ratchet. we go. I'm going to move this back. Make sure it doesn't clip back into place though. There's a 10mm bolt here holding the other side of that bracket. Slide this bracket out. Part of it is clipped around this air intake tube. Pop it off out of the little grommet. Pull the bracket out. Before you remove this engine mount, have new hardware on hand for these 2 studs and bolts. And then this bolt, there's one here and then one towards the back of the car. So I have new ones of those on hand. I'm going to remove this steel brace that's on the top. It's got 3 bolts holding it. They are 14mm. Start with these. Get them broken free. To push the ECU cable aside. Just sort of gently push this way. I can reach the bolt there. Just be careful moving all these around because there are wires inside. You don't want to break the wires. I like to break all the bolts free before I start removing them. So now that I've got the other 2 broken free, I can take this one out completely. Pull that bolt out. Move this back. Pull that bracket right out of there. You can use a floor jack and a piece of wood to support the transmission. You don't really need to jack up on this very much right now. This is just to hold it up as we swap the mount, but I want to get it in position so we're ready. And that's perfect like that. Before you remove this mount, make sure you have your engine supported on your floor jack, which we've already done. Spray some rust penetrant on here. Try to get some down in here. And there's one in the back, it's hard to see. These are 17mm. I'm gonna start with the bolt. This wrench, this ratchet and extension might not be big enough, might be too much torque. That worked. Pull that bolt out. I'll switch to a 17mm deep socket. Get to these nuts that are on the studs. I need a longer ratchet sometimes for leverage. The engine might drop down a tiny bit. That's okay. It is supported with the floor jack. That nut off. All right, so I'm actually going to lift the engine up with the floor jack a bit. There we go. Take that nut off. There's a little steel damper piece that's going to come off of there. So that's nice and free from the engine. Now we'll work on getting it free from the body. I'm using a longer ratchet for leverage. I'm also using the deep socket for a little extra height, but you can use a regular socket and a longer extension. Break this free. Now there's a second one that's in the back. It's a lot harder to see, but it basically looks just like the one in the front. And you can slide this down and you can feel it get on there. The same, break it free. lift the mount up and off the studs where it mounts the engine / transmission, and pull it right out of the engine compartment. Here's our original transmission mount from the vehicle, and our brand new one from oneauto.com. See, it's the same design, same style of rubber mount with the aluminum piece that's molded in the middle. Same mounting holes. This will fit in our vehicle and work great for us. Before I put our new transmission mount in, I'm gonna go in here and take a rag and just wipe some of this junk out of here that's been collecting. Just so I know that the engine mount will sit nice and flat on the frame rail. Take our new one, just kind of maneuver it in. Put it over the studs first. The holes are slotted, so you do have some play. I would get the outer bolts caught first, these bolts, and then we'll worry about these bolts over here. So take your hardware, put that back in. I'm just gonna snug it down. I'm not gonna torque it yet. Back one's gonna be a little trickier because it's hard to see. You're gonna have to kind of feel for it. I can just see the hole from up here, but I need to kind of hold this harness out of the way and then maneuver my hand down in here. Reach down in with our extension and socket and just kind of get it threaded by hand first, because you can feel it thread in and not cross thread. With the bolt started, now I can just snug it down. Don't forget to reinstall the steel dampener. It just sits on top. We'll take our bolt. I can see that the hole is lined up nicely. We'll drop our bolts in there. Start it, thread it by hand because this is aluminum, this bolt is steel. Don't want to cross thread it. I get it threaded down. I'll use my socket and ratchet to draw the transmission mount up. And I'm just going to snug this down, come back and torque it afterwards. Reinstall these flange nuts. Take your deep socket, ratchet, we'll snug these up. I'm going to lower the jack and pull it out from underneath the car. And we're done with that for now. I'm going to torque these bolts in the frame rail. It's 47 foot-pounds. Get that out of the way. I torque these to 54 foot-pounds. I'm going to put this little brace back in. So the two bolts go into the mount. You should be able to tell that the bolts that came out of it, they're real clean. There's no corrosion on them because they were steel going into aluminum. Put this in place. Get one of these caught. Make sure you thread them in by hand. So you'll cross thread them. Move this out of the way. Get the bracket lined up. Sometimes if you turn it backwards, like you're going to thread it out, you can help find the threads. You can kind of feel it, just like that, and then it should thread right in. Push the fuse panel over and grab this bolt here. And tighten these up. Torque these to 28 foot-pounds. Now we're going to put our ECU bracket back in place. This under here. This air intake tube has a little grommet that it's going to push onto, just like that. This is going to sit, move these harness connectors out of the way, and capture this bolt inside of the fender here. Snug this one down. You just have to tighten it till you feel it stop. And then a little bit more, and that'll be tight. Pick this box up. This can actually go back onto its mounts. This is gonna push that back up. That sits just like that. Put this little 10mm bolt in here that mounts it. Might have to move the bracket a bit as you thread it in. And tighten this down. Clip the harness back in where it mounts here. Reinstall the ECU. You can't really mess up the connectors because they don't reach. So they only go where they reach. Try to push them on evenly. Get them kind of close, and then these little bars are going to go in and catch pins that are each side of the connector. And as you do that, they're going to lock in place. Those are locked into place. Position it on the bracket. Don't forget to reinstall the plastic cover. It just slides over. And let's get these two little tabs are going to go in here. That's going to sit like that. Now you can reinstall the bolts. Have to move it around a little bit. Get it started. Just get it tight, and then a little quarter turn more should do it. The ECU is reinstalled. Now we're going to reinstall our battery. If you have the plastic cover, now you reinstall it. Get the battery tie down and the hook's attached, so you can reach down, hook this in, kind of jump it away, just like that. Do the same for this side. Use our 10mm deep socket, tighten these. Reinstall the positive terminal. Yours might look different. This car has had the terminal replaced, but the idea is the same. Put that over there, back hook down there. Take a 12mm, tighten this up. You don't have to over tighten these, just tighten it and then give it a good tug, make sure it doesn't wiggle or come loose. You can kind of see how they bend as they tighten. Take our negative terminal. Just go back on here. Tighten this one up. This is a 10mm. There's a possibility that the original positive terminal is also a 10mm. Make sure that's nice and tight. The battery is replaced. When you're all done, just close the hood.
Thanks for watching. Visit us at oneauto.com for quality auto parts, fast and free shipping, and the best customer service in the industry.